I want to talk a little bit about China, Starmer's visit to China, and the utter drama that's been caused by it. You know, I'm reading his meeting over there was only about 40 minutes, something like that. You could have had a phone call, but have a listen to this.
Among a string of other Labour people that have gone there and laid the groundwork to sell the UK off to China. This trade deal and this trip is an absolute farce and will absolutely screw the United Kingdom over for years to come. And I know it's like, we don't think about China that much. And even as Mark Saber said, it's always the, Russian oligarchs that we think about. The Chinese own most of this country. They're just not as vocal about it as some of the other countries that have come in and tried to take power. So I think it's really, really scary, and we don't think about China enough. We've got two threats. There is the threat of Islamist extremism for the West, and then there's China, and they're very much having the same gravitas and the same pull.
I couldn't agree.
So there you go. That sums the whole situation up in a nutshell. Now, there's one very important thing that you have to realize about China, and that is the fact. I mean, look at the name of the party, CCP, Chinese Communist Party. That says everything you need to know. Communism in any way, shape, or form is not compatible with our way of life. They mention Russia and try and compare that with China. Come off it. People need to do, an element of reading of history, really, and they need to understand exactly what's going on and not take what is being spoon-fed to you by the mainstream media. Now, Starmer, if you have a look at Starmer's government, and I certainly wouldn't want to be him right now, he's gone through all of, this whole election period, and he's turned around and said, I'm going to do ABC. And he's welched on all of those. He's done DEF instead. He's pissed off America. He's trying to get us back into Europe. And now he's going cozying up to the Chinese. What actually really happened over there? That's what I'd like to know. What was the real conversation, and not what we're being told out here on the airwaves. One thing you've got to consider as well, and I want to show you this. I've shown you this many times before. This is regions of England, and there's 9 there. This is what they want to do to England in its entirety. They want to carve it up into different regions. We've already had this with London. We've got the London Assembly. That is a result of regionalisation. If you look at Scotland, you look at Wales, you look at Northern Ireland, they've all got assemblies. So they've been regionalised. They will all have mayors, and you will get rid of the counties and shires. Under the English Constitution, the counties and shires have a right to self-governance, and that is being stripped away. Once you do that, England is no more, and then chunks of it can be, portioned off, can be sold to external influence. It's all money, external power, external influence. I mean, you look at the situation with a massive embassy within London as well, and you've got this environment where it's very close to, or the building and expansion work they want to do is very close to some underground telecommunications cables, which carry some very vital data back and forward. And this, cannot be allowed to happen on our soil. Yet again, it is. He's going over there for trade talks or whatever it happens to be. And at the end of the day, what we're getting flooded with Chinese stuff. We're getting flooded with Chinese surveillance. We're getting flooded with Chinese influence and all sorts of stuff. Have a listen to this video here. Now, this was him a couple of 3 days ago when he was over there.
So I told President Xi when we met at the G20 in Brazil in 2024 that we want to build a consistent, long-term, comprehensive and strategic relationship with China.
A long-term, comprehensive, strategic relationship with China. In return for what exactly? How is that compatible exactly? Now, if you look at all of the internet chatter to do with Starmer, if you have a look at all the internet chatter to do with other world leaders, what you have to look at, and it's a term that you may not have come across, but it's called stakeholder capitalism. Have a look into that. There is a guy, I can't remember his name, on YouTube and a couple of other places where he's dealt with this in big detail. And it's very much modeled around what's going on in China. They want to use that and transplant it onto other nations, including us. And this is all the maneuvering. And you look at the influence coming in. It's, you know, and our Prime Minister cozying up. It's not on. Now, why this is very, very wrong, I draw your attention back to this. Remember the regions of England. England, Wales, and Northern Ireland have something in common. It's a common law jurisdiction. It's very important. It protects us all. I did a video which came out yesterday regarding, you know, how all of this should be fixed, and it's doing very well with views. I thank you for that. It's worth a listen. And it details those mechanisms that are in place to protect us from outside influence. And you've got corporations, you've got governments, successive governments making rule after rule after rule, all of which are subverting and ignoring those basic constitutional rights. Now, one of those is the Act of Settlement. If you have a look at this, it's very important you understand the basics of it. I'm not going to bring the whole document up, but rather just a brief overview. So the Act of Settlement 1701 was a foundational constitutional law of England, passed to secure a Protestant succession and limit the power of the monarchy. Among its key provisions, the Act addressed concerns about foreign influence, particularly following the reign of the Dutch-born William III. So initially, this was all to do with protecting us against the Dutch, but the same principle applies. Regarding foreign influence, the Act included several key provisions. It barred anyone born outside the kingdoms of England, Scotland, or Ireland from serving on the Privy Council, in Parliament, or holding civil or military office under the Crown, even if naturalised. Now, that is very important, because if you look at the British Nationality Act 1948, that has been illegally removed. It stipulated that if a non-native English person became monarch, the country would not be obligated to fight in wars to defend territories not belonging to the English crown, unless Parliament agreed. It required the monarch to obtain parliamentary consent before leaving the dominions of England, Scotland, or Ireland. These clauses were partly motivated by anti-Dutch sentiment during William III's reign. Ironically, despite aiming to limit foreign influence, the Act paved the way for the German House of Hanover to take the throne in 1714. The requirement for the monarch to stay in the country was repealed in 1716, and the restriction on foreigners holding office was largely repealed in 1870. Well, that's bollocks. It was later than that. Overall, the Act of this is important. Overall, the Act of Settlement sought to secure a Protestant monarch who was a member of the Church of England, while also limiting the potential power of foreign sovereign or foreign influence. So the point I'm trying to make is you've got all this cozying up to China, and you've got all of our rules, our inalienable rights, and everything that was given to us a generation ago being wholesale ignored. And you look at what's going on in our parliament, on our streets, our prime minister cozying up to God knows who. You know, one of the most powerful allies we would have is America, purely constitutionally, how much we got in common. But you look at what's happening. And eventually, of course, this will catch up. Now, guess what Starmer says about his popularity? You won't believe what he says here. Have a butcher's at this.
Prime Ministers, some of the Labour-affiliated unions have said that if things don't go well at the local elections in May, they're going to call for you to stand down. If you do become a drag on your party's chances of staying in government after the election, would you consider that?
We won an election in 2024 with a huge mandate for change. I led us into that election and I intend to deliver on that mandate. I'll be judged in the next election on whether we've delivered the change that the country wants and frankly deserves.
So you're sticking around?
I'm going to see through the mandate that we won in 2024 because it's only by consistently and carefully changing the country. As we're seeing, the economy is beginning to turn around. We're taking a number of measures on the cost of living. But I never pretended that this would be a quick and easy change, because after 14 years of the last government, it was always going to take time. But it was a huge mandate. It was a mandate for change, and I intend to deliver on that mandate.
So he's not answering a straight and sensible question there, giving it a load of bullshit. But what he's basically saying is he's not going anywhere. You know, people like this, when they get in, they have to be shoved or booted out of the door, quite literally. That tells you everything you want to know with that final clip. Oh dear. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I'll talk to you soon. Toodaloo.